Here's Brody Brazil.
I'm going to try and be as responsible as possible in this video, but to accomplish that, I need you to follow through on a promise for me. And it goes like this. If you pass along the numbers and projections I'm about to share here, it has to be done with the context and the understanding that all of this came from me. And I'm not trying to take credit for it. I just want people to know reality versus speculation. And that's an area I have not jumped into yet, speculation. But everybody's doing it. And I wanted to offer some genuine opinions on straightforward Las Vegas projections as it relates to the Oakland A's. You know, I've spent a ton of time surrounding this, talking to people about this, experts, amateurs from Oakland, from Las Vegas. I'm trying to put together all the pieces, and I feel like at this point, I've got some big round numbers to share. So why don't we get right to that? But again, understand what I'm sharing here are projections, and they're not meant to be misleading or totally inaccurate. Why would I do that? I'm giving you honest numbers and figures that seem sensible. Let's begin with the first category here. Final construction cost of an A's ballpark at the Tropicana site by 2028. Now, the number has already been set at about $1.5 billion here in 2023, including $380 million of public funding. So I'm not talking about public versus private. I'm saying the overall cost of this ballpark. 1.5 now, but sound effects. $2.3 billion as a final cost by 2028. Now, instantly, I know critics from Southern Nevada will say, you're just trying to make it sound too expensive. That's not it at all. The Howard Terminal Ballpark project was going to end up costing more. Oakland even identified that from the very beginning. Any project you do, if you have a house and you've remodeled something or done a project, you know the number that is initially even estimated is rarely the final total cost. Things happen. Inflation, cost of materials. Maybe you want to do more with the design. You see how things are going. You want to get fancy. Okay, and I'm not faulting anybody for that. This is the nature of how things go. Now, you'll criticize and say, well, 2.3 is a lot more than 1.5. Look at the MSG Sphere. They wanted to make it elaborate. They wanted to raise the bar in Las Vegas. And that's kind of another problem here, so to speak. You can't just do pedestrian stuff in Las Vegas. You have to do Vegas caliber entertainment in the entertainment capital of the world. And to do that, I don't know if $1.5 billion gets you the retractable roof, gets you everything on a 9-acre site, gets you something that makes a statement. But $2.3 billion might. So there you go. Let's move on to the next category here. How long does a honeymoon phase last in Las Vegas? Well, what do I mean by that? How long will fans simply come to see something new and shiny, whether it's the stadium, whether it's the same team as in the A's, but in a new place? How long will the hype wear off where all of a sudden now the team's record and results and performance and who's on the roster and who's playing, when will that stuff matter and when will the newness factor wear off? That makes sense, right? I don't think I had to explain it in too much detail, but how long does it take? It's a great sound. 2.5 seasons, I think, until the honeymoon phase wears off. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't extend longer. Look at the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They're basically 6 years in, and their honeymoon still feels like it's going on. Stanley Cup Final, their very first season of existence. Playoffs in, 5 out of 6? Last year, they didn't make it. Next year, this past year, they go on to win the Stanley Cup for the first time. My point is, you can extend this number, and I think I'm being pretty generous here. People will be interested for 2.5 seasons just in the ballpark and the setting alone, whether it's locals, whether it's tourists. Now, mind you, this stadium and the projections made by the A's spell out that it needs to be successful for 30 years to the tune of about 28,000 in attendance every single game for 30 years. I'm saying 2.5 years in, if the team isn't doing what fans want them to do, it's when the honeymoon phase wears off. So I thought I was being generous there. I think that one's pretty clear. Okay, lowest cost and average ticket price before fees. And again, this is not parking or merchandise or beer or soda or hot dogs or popcorn, peanuts, none of that. This is just the lowest cost ticket and the average ticket price per game. And I know this is complicated. There could be the flex thing where it costs more or less, or a special game or weekend. I'm just trying to speak in generalities here. Now, it was said and promised during the Nevada state legislative session that $15 tickets would be available. I've got a separate video on that just published recently. You should check it out. I don't think that's going to be the case. With only 30,000 seats, a small supply, any kind of demand is not going to put you in the $15 price range. I mean, I don't think the Golden Knights have $15 tickets. The Raiders definitely don't. Supply and demand. And it doesn't matter if you play 81 home dates or not, 30,000 seats and the cost of everything else in Las Vegas. I mean, when a bottled water costs you $11 in a hotel room, I don't think a ticket to a major league game, even the worst one in the stadium, is $15. $55 and $145. So I'm very elevated. But this is Las Vegas. People pay a ton to do things in Las Vegas. I've talked about spending 36 hours there before and spending a lot more than I had ever intended to or imagined. Now, that includes, parking at the airport, meal at the airport, flying with tickets, airline tickets, Uber to the Strip, hotel room outrageously priced with 10 different resort fees, and then entertainment for the evening and food, meals, all that stuff included. It escalates quick. So they know, I say they, entrepreneurs in Las Vegas know that people are coming there with money to spend. Why would you charge them that? Now, this has an interesting divide to it, because if you're local, I don't know that you are really interested in the $55 lowest ticket price. If you're a tourist and you came in and this is a one-off and, all right, you're going to spend that $55 once or $75 once, okay. But if you're a local and the ticket prices are elevated because of tourists, this is a hard way to sell tickets and adjust your prices, locals versus tourists. And then there's the secondary market. It just gets a lot more complicated. When some people come in with a lot more money, they're willing to pay it. Like, do you literally outprice the locals? I don't know. And I do think the average cost of a ticket there is $145. I don't think that's far off. The Golden Knights are in a very similar realm in terms of price. Did I say realm with Golden Knights? Yes, I did. Not intentional. $145 and $55, the average and lowest ticket cost per game. And hey, then you throw in some fees, you throw in all the souvenirs you wanted to buy. I don't think this is going to be a cheap endeavor by any means. The Golden Knights, one of the highest ticket and attendance costs per game for a family of four in the NHL, and the Raiders by far, like by a lot, have the highest secondary ticket value in the NFL. So there is precedent for it. How would a referendum vote on $380 million of public funding result? Now, to be fair, before I give you this figure, an estimated number, the city of Oakland last summer denied a request by a certain council member to have a referendum vote on Howard Terminal. But here's the problem. There was no even plan laid out at that point. There was nothing to vote on at that point. But the reason it was brought to the table by one of the council members who was not going to vote for Howard Terminal to be a thing is because that council member knew that there were not enough people up to speed on what the project was, how it would greatly benefit the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda, and because there was so much false information, organized false information being spewed out there about the project, that enough people would believe it, not understand it, and just say, you know what, no is easier than me understanding this, so I'll just say no. But if you understood it, probably vote yes for it. So with all that spelled out, I'm not guilting Nevada or Clark County or Southern Nevada. I'm not saying you're any different than anywhere else. These things would typically result in no, but if it came to a referendum vote for the public money that's been approved with SB 1, I think it's 73% no. And I almost went higher here. I almost touched the 80s because that's what a lot of polling suggested. So I'll be even more conservative here in my estimate and say that it's 73% no. I don't think this should come as much of a surprise to anybody. If it gets to this, obviously getting it to that is a whole separate story. Okay, how would media revenue change if the A's went to the smallest market in baseball? And I have to tread very lightly here because I'm quite involved in this scenario, right? It's what I do professionally. But I'm not just talking about a television deal or a radio deal, a streaming deal. This is everything. Everything you do media-wise in a smaller market. Not one of the top 10 in our country. We're talking the 40th biggest market in the country, which would be the smallest in all of Major League Baseball. So to just be clear here, in a top 10 market, your media reach, right, it commands a lot more revenue. Whether it's partnerships, sponsorships, you get a lot done in a bigger market. There's just a lot more opportunity and a lot more value. But if you are in the 40th market, in the smallest Major League Baseball market, and yeah, add in the tourists, that's fine, but I'm talking about locals and businesses and companies that are there. And yes, there are some big ones, but you're still in market 40 for a reason. Down 60%. Just an estimate. I'm not the guy with all these numbers and answers, but that's the estimate that I'll give here. Additional salary cost to players, by the way, in the first decade to reach an average MLB payroll. So right now, entering the 2023 season, I think the A's were just shy of $60 million. So the average MLB payroll entering this season was $160 million. So you can already see that if you do the math on an additional $100 million per year times 10 years just to get to the league average, I'm not saying be a top 5 or top 7 MLB payroll team. I'm saying to get to 15th. That's already $1 billion per decade. But you know what? Inflation, competition, baseball's only going one direction with this. It's up. Whoa! $1.5 billion extra in the first decade of the A's if they're in Las Vegas and they want to spend up to, and this only gets you to league average. Yeah, this doesn't get you to, again, top tier status. $1.5 billion, not total, extra, in addition, to reach the average MLB payroll. It's my projection. And of all of them, I mean, I think this one has the most background and track record to understand that this might be among the most accurate. So forget funding a $1.5 to $2.3 billion ballpark, $1.5 billion extra in the next decade alone just to get to average payroll. I think this is the last one. The value of the A's franchise after any new stadium is up and open and operating. Tropicana site, Howard Terminal, Rio site, Coliseum site. Oh my goodness. Now we're really going places. Value of the franchise. Now I'm not going to give you a value here. I'm going to give you a magnification. 1.7 times greater. So, and I think that's conservative. I think doubling the franchise value might also be accurate too. I'll cut it a little bit short and say the cost of everything to build and move it forward, it maybe might reduce it, right, if you have that overhead. 1.7 times the value after any new stadium is operating. And so as much as we talk about, the fan experience here and the team needs a new ballpark, like there's no question about that. Getting it done, sure, is for a fan base somewhere. But it also obviously has huge ramifications on the value of the actual franchise itself to the tune of doubling it. How many things at this value do you double? I don't want to say overnight, but within 5 years. Doesn't happen very often. This has the ability to do that. So again, those were my Vegas projections, and I need to remind you, if you share these, if you pass these along, these cannot be taken as accurate, real things. I didn't come up with them for that intent. Right? You got it? Like, this is for us to just have a conversation and take what you already know and apply what I think is reality and kind of let that soak in. So, thumbs up on this video since you made it here all the way to the end. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel so that I can definitely see you back here next time.